Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Immigrant podcast. My name is Paul Hadeye. Today's conversation is one conversation that you will like, whether you are an immigrant or you are planning to move to Canada. This is an insightful conversation. When immigrants move into this country, we go through different struggles. And one of the major struggles that immigrants go through is the ability to even get a job. I've seen people with over 10 years of experience struggling to even get an entry-level role. But it doesn't have to be like that. When you critically analyze the immigration pathway to Canada, you will notice that some extra points are given to people based on the experience that they've gathered from their respective countries. But when they move to this part of the world, some of them are disappointed. Some of them get frustrated by not being able to continue whatever the dreams that they've had and all their aspirations. At some point, some people get to do some things. And when they finally find a role, some people just stop dreaming. They don't want to grow. They just lose all the energy. So I'm excited to introduce my guest. My guest is a career coach. She's very passionate about seeing immigrant thrive in this part of the world. She has been doing this for quite a while. Her name is Michelle Gibson Morgan. She's the author of the book, Finding a Thriving Career in Canada. So it's not a coincidence that we have the author of Finding a Thriving Career in Canada on the Thriving Immigrant podcast. Thank you so much, Coach Michelle, and I'm excited to have you and dive into this conversation. So welcome to the Thriving Immigrant podcast, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's a pleasure to be here and definitely an honor to be on the podcast with you today.
Can you introduce yourself and tell us about your immigration story?
Yeah, happy to do that. I would say, well, my journey started in 2008 when I decided to settle down in the Greater Toronto area. It's interesting because when I left my home country, Jamaica, with my family, I didn't immigrate on a professional related category. It was really in the family category that I came here. But somewhere into the journey, as I navigated my own career questions, I have managed to develop some strategies and just the motivation to help other people on their journey as well. It was a critical crossroads for me when I first arrived because I wasn't even sure if I wanted to stay in the career I had in my home country, let alone figure out what would be my options when I got here. But my transferable skills in learning got me into corporate learning and development, into coaching, into a career services program in one of the welcome centers where I was facilitating workshops about how to navigate the systems here in Canada. And that was a huge catalyst to where I am today. That's what really laid the groundwork for me. Seeing my own journey and lessons learned, packaging what I've helped others to figure out. And I'm here to share what I know with you and your audience today.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle, for sharing that. Does it feel like you've been here for a very long time?
No, I feel like the last decade and a half really went by a lot faster than I would care to admit at this point.
Yeah. So, well, for me, I think I'll be 6 years. And it will be 6 years that I came to Canada in a few months. But really, it still feels like just yesterday. So that's what I'm asking, so that I can have an idea what's going to feel like when I'm 16 years old in Canada. All right. So you've been in the Canadian career space for, let's say, for a decade and a half. And I'm sure you've seen different things. You've seen some mistakes that maybe the typical immigrants make. Do you want to speak to some of the mistakes that typical immigrants make when trying to navigate the career space or even grow in their career in Canada?
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to share that. If I can save some folks from making some of these mistakes, all the better. I would say it really comes down to four things when it comes to what helps someone to thrive in Canada. And it's when you don't navigate these four buckets very well that it's not such a great experience. Those four things are clarity. So being unclear about yourself and your strengths and what you bring to the table. Two, your communication. So how persuasive of a communicator you are is a big deal here. You have to know how to tailor your message to your audience, no matter how you're communicating. But also, most people miss this critical piece around your brand. How you show up, especially in the virtual space, is a really big deal. And I would even say it's even more critical than in most parts of the world. People usually are surprised when I say that having a LinkedIn profile is a non-negotiable, really, when you're in Canada, but also how you put yourself out there credibly and as a thought leader really matters if you want people to hire you for jobs because you have to show yourself as an expert and then to build your network as well. So your communication must be persuasive and your brand must communicate all the other things about you that's important to know. I would say the other two mistakes are around community. So that's that third C. You need people around you. I could tell you that a lot of what I've accomplished today, I could not without my community of friends and family members personally, but also my professional network as well, the people that I have surrounded myself with that I could grow from and that also help me to get opportunities while I'm here, my mentors, my coaches. You need community. Don't think you'll survive very well or be your best trying to do it all on your own. And then the last one would be that fourth C, which is change readiness. If it's one thing in Canada, things are constantly changing. You don't really get a chance to level off on anything before some trend changes, before a restructure changes the nature of your work and or if you have a job. And that's a real thing. There are lots of conversations this week around managing change from the perspective of dealing with restructures because a lot of that is happening. So with those four C's, you could avoid some of the mistakes and pitfalls by being clear, communicate well, have a good community, and always be ready for change, planned and unplanned changes that could come your way.
Wow, that was insightful. I love the forces, clarity. And I think that clarity is a big point. Because when you come to this part of the world, you come to this country, you have a lot of things to worry about. And sometimes people advise you and you get confused, you get lost. So it's difficult to even achieve anything when you don't have that clarity. So I love the fact that clarity is the first on your C, on your first four C's. Then you talk about communication. I can't overemphasize the importance of LinkedIn presence at this current age in Canada. So that's a very strong point. Then community. I've hosted more than 30 people on my podcast, and I can tell you that people I've met physically are probably less than 10%, but I have a large community. And coming to this country, you cannot do it alone. You need people. So that's a powerful one. And thank you for sharing all those C's. So, why did you write the book, Finding a Thriving Career in Canada?
Yeah, it's a great question. I appreciate you're asking that. I imagine that it would accelerate the trajectory for a lot more immigrants if they had advice that was at least proven. Myself and 300 other people, their career journeys have informed what's in there. But also, I want to influence the mindset of the people coming in. To your point, that without clarity, we are hearing a lot of voices, sometimes a lot of negative voices People will tell you about their own negative experiences, and that might color your impression. But really, there is always the possibility that you're not going to be a statistic, that you can really find your place, find a good job, and thrive, and not just to stay stagnant at one level, but that you can get all the advancement opportunity that you're seeking as well. So it's really to be a positive influence, to accelerate the path for some persons who need direction, but also it's to give that hope and inspiration that you can be the best that you want to be. And actually, chapter one starts with that point about, do you have to settle for less than the best because you're an immigrant? No, you don't. It's
Hmm.
just that you need some direction to help you to navigate your way forward.
I love it. I love that point. Thank you. Because when you speak to different immigrants, and you made a very valid point talking about different voices that can influence or can color your mind, and sometimes you even lose it completely. Like people come for maybe for example, you meet someone who had it very rough
Mhm.
the early years in Canada. That person may feel like it has to be rough for everyone, and it doesn't have to. And that's where community also comes in. Like if you find yourself in the middle of community of maybe people who are not so positive, you just realize that even you are no longer positive about life. So I love that chapter one. And is the book available on Amazon right now?
Yes, I am thrilled and excited that it is available on Amazon. It's there as Kindle ebook as well as paperback. So
Awesome.
persons can get the version that they prefer.
Yay, congratulations. So if you are listening to me right now, you may want to get a copy on Amazon. And the good thing about Amazon is regardless of where you are listening to me from, you can always grab a copy. Find yourself the book, Finding a Thriving Career in Canada, written by Michelle Gibson. Okay, so let's continue the conversation. You mentioned something that I really like, and I want you to speak more on it.
Mhm.
So, how can immigrants with leadership potential and high career aspirations advance their careers? And I would like you to speak on the unique challenges that some immigrants go through. So, some people proud to moving to Canada, they had gathered like 15, almost sometimes some people almost to 20 years experience, like 2 decades of experience. Then they come to Canada, looks like they just have to start from the beginning. How can immigrants with leadership potential, how can they maximize it and keep the energy flowing and not just give up on their aspirations?
Yeah, and that's so powerful because sometimes life wears on you, right? You come full of hope, but then if the path wasn't as smooth as you expected, then you might be tempted to give in to the fears and or the perceptions that it doesn't get any better, that you can't go upward or forward. So I would say to those folks, picture it this way: there's no one fixed path for everybody to get to where they're going. One of the things that I find has helped people that I mentor and coach is I tell them to embrace the zigzags. So sometimes we assume that if we just sit down, we work hard, we're gonna get promoted. Somebody's just gonna tap us and say, "Good job, let's promote you." That's not quite how it works. And sometimes you even have to take, well, what I consider a zigzag career path. So sometimes the next opportunity doesn't open up in your department, or it doesn't happen that your manager recommends you right away for a promotion. You can make what we call a lateral move. So a side move to another department that still gives you a path upward if you find that you're stuck in your department and you're not getting promoted. As long as you have the transferable skills, be okay to move in another direction first, and then the path upward could present itself that way. Sometimes the zigzag looks like you're at one level in your current company, but you're not getting ahead. And then you find another opportunity that you are qualified for that puts you at the next level and you're advancing just the same. Interestingly, one of the stories I thought of was someone I was helping recently. So she was a frontline manager in healthcare. And it happens that, well, she was promised the promotion, but the promotion just was not coming. And she was already doing the work. She already had the capabilities, but the organization, for whatever reason, was dragging its feet on making the promotion official in terms of the title and the compensation, but they had her doing the work already. And so together, she and I came up with a plan that if the promotion didn't come through how she expected it, that she would look for another opportunity because she knew she was ready for the director level and knew she could take on more senior responsibility. She already was at her current organization, but just not getting it officially. And with the strategies that we put in, how to brand herself again on LinkedIn, how to customize an application to show you already had the leadership skills. And it just so happened somebody reached out to her on LinkedIn. I helped her with the application, I helped her with the interviewing. And now she's in a director role in another organization. So she's gone from frontline. Now she's the leader of a frontline team of different professionals. And she's thriving, she's happy, she's in a better organizational culture. She's now in the six figures in terms of her compensation. And that was one of the things why she wanted the promotion because she was doing the work, but the pay was below the comparators when she compared other people that she
Hmm.
went to school with here in Canada and the credentials they had that she also had. And so now she's happy, she's thriving. So people need to embrace the zigs and the zags that come with that. And then the last thing I'll add on that is one of the biggest things though, if you want to stay in your current organization, you have to be keeping your receipts. If you've ever heard that expression before, and for those persons who might not be familiar with that expression, it means make sure you have your proof.
Hmm.
So if you're achieving big results, you're collaborating very well, you're not just hitting your metrics, you're exceeding them. When they ask people to take on extra things, you take it on and you ace it. You have your proof ready so that when that end of year or whenever the performance review conversation comes, when that promotion conversation comes, somebody happened to leave unexpectedly and there's an opening, you are already ready because you're already documenting that you are a rock star. You already have the proof, not just of your potential, but of your capabilities and you are ready and not caught off guard. If you have to be interviewed, you have your accomplishments ready to showcase. So if you don't remember anything else, I'm reminding you, keep your receipts. You always need your proof of what you're already accomplishing. So that way, when it comes time for decision making, you're among the contenders. And of course, just thinking about it, what else? Because sometimes you're a rock star, but people try to hide and stay under the radar. You need to make sure that you're maintaining visibility.
Hmm.
Visibility, along with a strong performance, will make you stand out to those decision makers. Don't be shy, and again, don't think that if you sit passively by that you'll automatically get promoted. You have to put yourself forward for sure, and you will certainly position yourself to go higher and further for sure.
Wow, that was powerful. And thank you for sharing that. So the reason why I find it very powerful is because, coming to Canada from Africa, there there are cultural differences. So, and sometimes you may just feel like they will see what I've done. People will see it and they will recognize it. If I talk about it, it's like me trying to brag or being arrogant or being prideful. But it doesn't work that way in Canada. I remember the last promotion I got in my last place of work. I had to ask my manager that what's happening? What do I need to do to move to the next role? And I was shocked when he said that, okay, I didn't know you were interested in the next role. So now that you've mentioned it, let's take a look. So we took a look, then we realized that I was already working in that capacity. And we're like, oh, okay, now that you want to move to the next role, I think you've even achieved everything that you need to move to the next role. So it's important to ask those questions, to talk about them, and to also keep your receipts, just like you said. So that was a
Yeah,
very
that's a
powerful
powerful
one.
point. Yeah, that's a powerful point. And I like the lens that you came forward with that idea that sometimes it's the country in which we grew up or the culture in which we grew up that told us that if you talk about your accomplishments, you're not being humble. And then imagine the reality check when you come to Canada that if you don't, then that's the risk that you take of always being overlooked for the things that you want because you're waiting for somebody else to say it versus you saying it for yourself. I will even borrow from Tayo. I watched one of your previous interviews, and one of the things she said that I wrote down, Tayo said, it's not bragging if you have the receipts.
Yeah.
It's not bragging if you have your receipts. So thank you, Tayo. The idea is that it's not automatic, and culturally, sometimes we have to make those cultural adjustments because of our upbringing or the countries where we're from, where from a social and an economic perspective, it operates differently. It's not that it's better or worse, but it's different. And you have to
Absolutely.
know that there's a difference. And so I literally wrote a whole chapter in the book about how to position yourself for opportunity, whether it's your first job or you're trying to position yourself for that advancement or promotion.
Mm.
What are some of the other things that you need to do? But what we just spoke about are the critical things that usually are eye-opening for people because they take those pieces for granted sometimes.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Good conversation. So, I was going to ask you about there's one phrase that we usually get when we move to Canada. It's always about lack of Canadian experience. You've been here for almost 2 decades and probably you've seen it. I won't say you've seen it all, but you have good experience. Is there anything like Canadian experience? And for typical immigrants, do you think that's enough reason not to give them the job? And I want you to be very sincere with this one.
Yeah, let's have that conversation. I'm ready for it. In all candor, I feel that some decision makers use it as a crutch when they don't necessarily want to be open-minded and look at the big picture. The organizations that understand talent, that understand innovation, and understand inclusion know that global experience or international experience enriches their organization. And so, one of the things I'm grateful for is that some of the provinces are bringing in legislation that will help to reduce the instances where people are being discriminated against because they worked somewhere else before they got here. Let's face it, the world of 2024 is a globalized world. People are moving to new countries all the time, and you do want them to bring those best practices from elsewhere where things are being done in a different way but accomplishing good results, that they can bring that perspective to your organization. And especially if you're thinking of how competitive it is to get the talent that you need in the organization, you do yourself a huge disservice when you get stuck on where in the world the person got the experience versus the value that they'll bring to your organization because they've tested and tried it elsewhere and it worked very well. And so realistically, when I am coaching especially the newer immigrant clients, I don't get deterred by concerns about no Canadian experience because I teach them that a lot of what you really need to do is marketing.
Hmm.
And it's marketing your strengths and your transferable skills and your accomplishments. If you market those three things very well in a way that you're customizing it to the specific organization and specific role that they're looking for, it's really hard for somebody to tell you no when you show them that you have what they're looking for. One of the challenges as immigrants, and it goes back to our point about not feeling comfortable to talk about yourself in those glowing terms, but that's the differentiator between being chosen and not being chosen for an opportunity. It's that it's your ability to sell to another audience your capabilities, and that the fact that you earned it somewhere else is just a bonus for them that enhances what they do. But you have to learn to sell. So there's a book that I like, and it changed my mindset a lot about job searching and about being influential in an organization, because we also do want to have influence in the organizations where we serve as immigrant professionals. So Daniel Pink wrote this book called To Sell is Human. And what I learned from it is that we are all in the business of sales. I repeat myself, we're all in the business of sales, whether your job title is a sales title or not. We're always trying to sell somebody on an idea, on a possibility, sometimes on a product or a service. But when it comes to your career, you are selling your capabilities, your potential, your awesomeness to another person. That's your job. You are in sales if you want to have a thriving career. So just learn how to market your experience and what you got from it. And 9 times out of 10, I've seen that work, even when people in the hiring seat are concerned about whether or not the person got their experience in Canada or not.
Wow. That was a good one. Like, the book you mentioned is one of my favorite books as well. And I am very passionate about sales. And I tell people every day that, just like you mentioned, every day you wake up is a sales cycle. You are either on the side of buying or the side of selling. So I think every immigrant should get comfortable with selling themselves and work on those, because sometimes too, we just need to work on ourselves and get comfortable with how we present ourselves and how we even talk to ourselves, because you need to talk to yourself first before you can talk about yourself. Thank you for mentioning all that. It's good that you've mentioned it. And for you, because you've got this experience for over 15 years, of course, you know what you're talking about. So what are your hopes for the next generation of immigrants building careers in Canada, knowing that the space has changed rapidly? The last 5 years, a lot has changed. Some industries are becoming threatened, while some industries are growing rapidly. So with AI evolution, I can't even predict what Canada will look like in the next 5, 10 years. But one thing I know is Canada will always need immigrants. Can't say forever, but I know that Canada will need immigrants for a long time. And when these people come here, they need to work. So what do you think is the future of the next generation of immigrants for their career in Canada?
Yeah, for the next generation, the advantage will be in your commitment to continuous learning. That's one of the things that we never let go of, even as we advance our careers, and even for those persons who get to the most senior levels. You have to have that commitment to self-improvement, to understanding what's happening in the market, and go and do your research and really have that kind of open-mindedness and that curiosity and that hunger to learn that will keep you sharp, and that will likely give you the competitive advantage. So I can use myself as an example. I've been in the talent management and learning and development space for a while. And then starting last year, it occurred to me that I couldn't stay on the fence even around AI anymore. And so I started to invest in that intentionally, going to conferences, attending webinars to get experts' perspectives on the pros and cons and where the opportunities might be. And then what I noticed coming into this year, that a lot of the job descriptions for learning and development and HR, and especially if you want to manage people, be a supervisor or manager, almost all of them was asking for some understanding about how AI impacts, whether it's your learning metrics, your design of your learning, how you're customizing employee journeys in HR. And so that was my way of staying ahead of the competition by starting to learn both formally and informally. So eventually, after I did the formal learning, I started to experiment with different tools that already had AI. I got ChatGPT and I learned to prompt because that's now, as there I heard last week in a conference, prompting is the new literacy. So it's not optional anymore to learn to prompt. This is now the direction things are going. So if you want to stay ahead of the competition, if you want to keep thriving, if you want to position yourself for more responsibilities, then you have to be serious about investing in your learning and your growth continuously, nonstop.
Wow. Thank you, Michelle. You've really given us a lot of insights for this particular, or let me say, on this particular episode of the Thriving Immigrant podcast. I love how you've talked about different points and your passion to see immigrant thrive. And thank you for writing the book. So, how can we contact you and how can we get access to maybe your resources and material?
Oh, absolutely. And in a minute, I'll close with reading part of my love letter to the immigrant that I wrote in the front of the book. But I'm on LinkedIn is one of the easiest ways to find me. I'm Michelle Gibson Morgan, and that's the name I use on all the platforms. So you can contact me there on Instagram or on Facebook. That's the name I use as well. And also, I do have a website. It's michellegibsonmorgan.com. So you can find ways to reach me. Persons can purchase books there. And there are other resources that are made available through the website as well for folks. So, as I heard our theme about people finding hope, especially with all the concerns about the career issues, here is a little love note. I'll read part of it for your audience today. Dear immigrant professional, you are important. You are worthy. You are valuable. You are valued. You belong here. You are needed. Canadian society needs you. The economy needs you. The community needs you. I ask you to believe these things because they are true. You can achieve your career goals and your aspirations with courage, support, research, and planning. I know this because I've not only helped other immigrants to do that, but I've been on the journey too. Surround yourself with people who share your vision for advancement. Make the most of all the resources available to you and resolve that you will hold yourself accountable for the results of your efforts and your decisions. There's more to the letter than that, but that's the way it starts. And it's just a heartfelt note so that persons know that even in the face of many challenges and the rocky road that accompanies this journey of being an immigrant in Canada, you can thrive and not just survive if you make sure that you embrace your courage in the face of fear and make the use of every opportunity that comes to you. And don't be afraid to put yourself forward to talk about your accomplishments because you are awesome and you have a lot to offer to whichever organization is fortunate and blessed enough to have you on their team.
Wow. Thank you, Michelle. That love note is so uplifting and I really love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming to the Thriving Immigrant podcast. Thank you for letting your light shine. Thank you for being a blessing to the community, for empowering and uplifting immigrants. So on this note, we are going to call it a day. Till I come your way again, stay thriving and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have this conversation today.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone.